Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? And I've learned recently I can't say the word successfully.
Oh.
That's a problem. So my guest today is Katie Mallett. She's the founder of Make and Do. So thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Make and Do.
Yeah, so Make and Do, we host community workshops, and really the purpose is to gather people to learn from local makers and doers. So community is really at the heart of what we're doing, and kind of the overall vision and mission is to see a more connected community.
Okay, and is that here anywhere, or is it specific countries?
Right now, it's focused mostly in the Smyrna, Marietta area.
Yep.
But eventually we'll be kind of expanding and doing different things in different locations.
So when you talk about makers and doers, is that what you said?
Yeah.
So it reminds me, like I live in Roswell, and so they're taking an old firehouse and they're turning it into a makerspace.
Yeah.
So is it that kind of stuff?
Very similar. Yeah. Really anybody who has a passion for, and kind of a talent for, honestly, just making things, or, some examples of workshops, candle making, flower arranging, really anybody who kind of has a talent or just a passion for things more in the creative space.
Right.
I would say that the workshops really range from, for sure, they're definitely creative, but then there are more things that are learning something as far as just from a practical aspect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish they had those kind of we did a renovation in our house, and so we had to learn tiling, and we had to learn all these things. And we went to the store, and they taught classes, which was very helpful.
It's awesome.
Like we went to the first one, which was just how you put it down, and then they have one a couple of weeks. It was like, how do you grout it?
Right.
So it's like
two very different things.
Right. You graduate up or down from those things. Yeah. So talk to me about how did you end up in this?
It has been the craziest journey, that looking back now, it's hindsight. It's really kind of cool to look back and see how the journey sort of started and unfolded. But, I kind of joined the corporate world in 2010. I graduated from college and took a few years off before I really kind of joined the working world. Moved to the beach for a little while. That was really fun.
Good for you.
Yep. I wanted to experience that. My mom always said, I feel like everybody should do that at least once in their life. So I did that and joined the, corporate world. I actually worked for a nonprofit. And my first job was really awesome because it allowed me to wear lots of different hats. So I think I literally did everything but run that organization, which was awesome, but exhausting.
Right.
It was a great way to kind of grow my experience level. And so from there, I kind of moved into the IT world. I got an opportunity for a company, and I was in kind of the technology space for probably 3 or 4 years, and I hated it. I just found that it was just not my strength. My skill set just really didn't fit well in that industry. And so
was it because you were working on something not tangible? Was it because you just didn't understand the lingo? Like, what was
both of the things that you just said. Right. I was actually in kind of a business development role, and in order to sell something, you really need to know it inside and out. And the very abstract ideas and services that I was selling did not make a lot of sense to me.
Right.
So I struggled in that and was like, okay, I have to leave. I have to get out of this environment. So I kind of transitioned back into like the nonprofit marketing world. And, I would say that every kind of role that I held, usually about the 3 to 6 month mark, this kind of creeping feeling would come back up that I just wasn't in the right place. And I thought, okay, well, if I find the right company, or if I find the right boss, or if I find the right team, I'll be happy.
Right.
And so I kind of was chasing that feeling. And every time, that feeling kept coming back up and resurfacing. And in October of 2016, I made the decision to leave the agency I was at. I didn't feel like what I was doing was making an impact. I felt like just anybody could come along and do that role. And for me, it just left me unfulfilled. And so that started pretty much a 1.5 to 2 year journey of figuring out, okay, who am I? What are my gifts? What are my strengths? And how can I use them to make an impact? And so it's funny. When I left the job, when I left, I found a couple of things to distract me in the meantime, which sort of put off kind of finding, my purpose and my calling. And that same feeling kind of came back up again. I was planning my wedding at the time, and that's a full-time job. And we got married, and, after things had settled down, I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. So I had no idea where to start. And I was actually on Facebook one night, and I was served an ad for a company in Atlanta that helps women design a career with intention. And it was kind of a divine Facebook ad, I always say, just because I was like, okay, well, that sounds interesting. And when I went on the website, the testimonials I was reading were literally my story. And just, women saying I didn't feel like I had any direction. I had no idea where to go next. Right. And so the company is Mavenly & Co., and they offer coaching services for women and a lot of other things too. But so I thought, okay, this is a good place to start. So I got set up with a coach. And I think for me, the initial sort of saying yes to that was hard because I wasn't working. And so it was an investment. Right. And I had to say yes to investing in myself. And that was something I wasn't used to doing. And so that was, my husband is so great, and he really encouraged me. He was like, I think you need to do this. And so for 6 or 8 weeks, kind of started down this path of figuring out my past kind of career history. And to me, it seemed like a lot of random positions and random industries, but there were actually a lot of commonalities and consistencies that I wasn't able to spot without a little bit of help. And so having language around things I was good at and what are my strengths really gave me confidence to move forward in this journey of figuring out, like, why am I here on this earth? Like, what am I here for? So after coaching was over, I was kind of thinking, all right, okay, now I'm going to figure out like the thing, like what is the thing I'm supposed to be doing?
You have a very classic entrepreneurial sort of, because we have to have a project. Yep. And we like projects to get to a certain point, but they can't drag on. And yeah.
Well, it's so crazy because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that they all have very specific traits that for me are easy to point out. And I still struggle with that label on myself. I don't know why. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I am an implementer. Right. So in the past, you tell me what your dream is and I will make it happen. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you could be a dreamer and a doer. I didn't realize that those two things could go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so I think I was always so closed off because of what I had known entrepreneurs to be like in the past. And so, not that I never knew entrepreneurs that weren't doers or implementers as well, but they always had a team of people around them that was their main focus. Right. So, that is something that I'm still sort of figuring out even today. And,
well, and lately, it's part of society. We honor the visionary. Mm-hmm. So the person who has like the big idea and the whatever, but that person has someone behind them that's making sure that's happening. And that person is as entrepreneurial as the other. Yeah. And it's just about where we place value. I do exercise with teams where I teach them how they think. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 main thinking styles. And I'll have one person saying, oh, I need to think more like that person. And I'm like, no, just because society says that's a cool or an interesting thing, we need all three. Because if we didn't have all three, the people who like are deep thinkers build bridges.
Yeah.
And you don't need a visionary building a bridge.
Right.
It would be a very rickety bridge. None of us would make it across.
Right. Well, and it's so, I have a very unique style of implementing and doing and building, make and do. Looking back and on how it even started is I haven't really heard of a lot of stories that are very similar to that, and which is at first it was scary because I was like, well, I haven't heard of anybody else doing things like this, so it must not be right. Yeah. I'm not doing it the right way.
So what was your first foray into this?
Well, back in February, long story short, all winter it was cold and rainy and miserable, and we had a couple really
winter.
We had a few really nice days randomly in February, so I wanted to get out and play in the yard, plant some flowers, and I don't know the first thing about keeping plants alive. I kill everything that I plant. And so I went online because I thought, all right, maybe there's a class or a workshop that I could take to just learn the basics. And I was surprised that I couldn't really find anything like what I was looking for. Yeah. And my very next thought was, well, I'll just make my own. So within a few hours, I had about 20 or 30 friends who were like, I'd pay $20 to come and learn the basics and take home like a potted plant that So made a few phone calls and found a master gardener that I didn't even know that was a thing. So found a master gardener who was willing to come and teach the class. And so we planned it for May. And so there was a few months in between. And over the course of the next few weeks after that, I was like, man, like whatever I do next needs to harness like these things that I've been kind of working on and planning. I mean, the process really brought me to life and really energized me. And I started wondering what other kind of topics would people want to take in a workshop setting. And that's really kind of where Make and Do was born.
Well, there's so many of those. I mean, it's as you go through life, you run into these situations where you've got to do something and you're like, no idea.
Right.
And part of the problem is you don't even know what to go to the store, and then they're intimidating. You walk down the aisle and the guy's asking him, and then he's sort of looking at you like, why are you doing this?
Right.
That's always what I get. I'm like,
very judgmental.
Yeah. It's
and like you should be better at this.
I'm looking for a junction box thing. And he's like, why are you looking for it? And I'm like,
right.
Come on. But if I'd gone through a class, I'd be like, I'm for this reason.
Right.
This person gave me,
you have the language around it and know, and, I think the workshops that we're hosting they're a really casual environment. It's very low key. And I use kind of the example of a table. Everyone is welcome at this table. And, I always want to be intentional about creating extra room.
Yeah.
I sort of came from a background growing up in school. I was never included. I was always the outcast, always. And what a terrible feeling. It's just the worst feeling ever. And so I have found that a lot of the behaviors don't change even when you get to be an adult.
We're always in high school. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about breaking that high school model down and kind of how you're seeing the business moving forward and those kind of things. Yeah. So we're talking today with Katie Mallett. She's the founder of Make and Do. You're listening to the Build Your Best Business podcast. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. I'll be right back.
Eric, tell us about Laddering Works.
So Laddering Works is a company that helps other businesses in one of two ways.
Okay.
So your company is either growing and you're not exactly sure how to keep up. So you need to scale operations, maybe raise some money, those kind of things.
So growing too fast.
Growing too fast. Okay. Growing too fast. You got kind of structural, you walk in every day, there's a fire. You've been doing it longer than 3 years or 1,000 days, and you still feel like you can't step away from the business and take a vacation. So we help companies on that side. So sort of operational support, looking at their financing, seeing if there's a way that we can help them, get to the next level. Or you're a company that's not doing any marketing at all. So you are maybe stalled. Your business has gotten to a certain level. You make a certain amount of money every year, but you've never gotten above that. And we come in and build marketing structure. So both of them are operational at the end of the day. It's about creating a process and a way to approach it that's strategic. It's that owners don't often know how to do both of those. So they're really good at sales, which means they may need operational structure because they're out signing more customers than they know what to do with. Or they've built a beautiful product that's the best kept secret. And so they need somebody to come in and help them market that product. And so that's the kind of businesses we look for. We come in as a stopgap and we work with a company for somewhere around 12 to 18 months typically, solve those problems for them and leave them better than we found them. And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking today with Katie Mallett. She's the founder of Make and Do, which sounds like it's an awesome idea because there's always things that people run into, from keeping their plants alive to figuring out how to tile the bathroom to whatever that somebody else knows how to do. And I would prefer to learn from someone in that more comfortable, casual environment, right? I was using that example of walking down the aisle of the home improvement store and they say, why are you buying this junction box or whatever?
Right.
And if you have a better vocabulary around it, if you've at least done it, and at least you're in a common place. We did a renovation of a basement, and I had been to Floor and Decor so many times. I mean, seriously, I was there every weekend for 6 months that I came in and some people were asking questions about vinyl to one of the sales guys, and he saw me and he said, "You should just ask him." He's been doing this. You're the
I've
been doing it for 6 months, and I wasn't going to lie to him because I'm a consumer. I'm like, I'd buy this, I wouldn't buy that.
Sure.
This is going to be terrible. So as you think about this platform and forming it, I know you said technology wasn't your thing. So is there like a technology slant to it at all? Is it a community you're thinking about, or Evite, or you're not sure? Or?
Well, right now, so kind of the process, the way it goes, I surveyed lots of people, friends, family, stranger, and asked them, what kind of topics would you actually sign up to take a workshop about? Right. And that was really where I got sort of my beginning ideas of the first several workshops I'd be offering. So then I found people to teach these workshops, local, artists, people who make things, people who have a skill or something that they're passionate about, teaching to other people. And so I have found that it's actually really easy to come up with topics and find people to teach them. The challenging part is getting people to sign up to take the workshops. It's been really fun. Most of the workshops have sold out. So I will work with whoever's leading and say, how many are you comfortable with? And most of the time it's 15 to 30 or 35. And so we'll kind of set a cap on it on the website. And then once it reaches that point, we'll go move to a wait list situation. And so, but, really it's about, marketing these events, these workshops to people who might be interested in it. It's getting people to share it with their friends and their neighbors. And word of mouth has been so helpful for what we're doing and getting other people to know about what we're doing and who we are. So, and
have you found, I know you're early, so some of the questions may not be potentially fair, but I'm going to ask anyway. So from a business model perspective, like you have money you could make off of people coming and attending and paying some kind of fee.
Yep.
Have you seen yet like the ability to partner with brands? Because like it reminds me of, have you ever heard of Prissy Tomboys here in Atlanta?
No.
So it's a lady, she owned a salon, but she likes to go rock climbing. And she wanted more girls to learn how to rock climb. And so they do classes on the weekends and they teach cool. They teach rock climbing and canoeing and hiking and all these, and they'll partner with brands.
Yeah.
And the brands help to, so business model wise, what are some of the kind of things you're considering? So
definitely, there are definitely partnerships. We have partnered with a local florist, and they are actually teaching a flower arranging workshops, and we're doing it at their space. And so really, I have kind of created the event, the workshop, and I get people there and then they take care of the rest, which is awesome. Yeah. So I'm still technically the host, but we're having it at their space, kind of in that environment where it really kind of like just authentic feeling of, I'm learning how to arrange flowers. I'm literally in the back of a florist shop right now. So it really kind of drives home kind of the whole making and doing portion of it. And so from that perspective, partnering with local companies, businesses, and brands has been really awesome. And then, just continuing to find partnerships that make sense for kind of what the heart of Make and Do is all about, which is community and connection. And so, but that's definitely something that I plan on putting a lot more focus and energy towards as the next several weeks and months play out. So
yeah, and so talk to me a little bit about kind of some of the challenges that you've run into.
Yeah, so the things that I'm doing now, I said I would never do. The whole idea of sales in general scared me because I had such a bad experience in the kind of the IT sales world. But, I didn't realize that when you're really passionate about what it is that you're doing, it doesn't feel like sales at all.
Right.
It's not intimidating. So, I've walked into local businesses, told them who I am and what I'm doing, and most of them are instantly on board because of the community aspect. Everybody wants to build a more connected community in my experience. And so, but I would say that the challenge really is, I kind of feel like I've hit this threshold of exposure, and how do you really push past that, and spread the word more. I'm experimenting with so many things. Before Make and Do, I couldn't tell you the first thing about ads, social media ads, Instagram campaigns, any of that. And I am not an expert by any means, but I know enough to sort of accomplish, those small goals that I set for myself. But probably the biggest challenge is the fact that it's just me doing everything. And so, before this, I was not a social media expert. I was not a financial sort of genius. I'm still not any of those things, but I have found you got to know a little bit about a lot of things. And
being a generalist in your business is good. And then knowing enough to then know when you need to give it to someone else, when it's like taking you way too much time.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like you're Make and Do, right? None of these people are going to be experts.
Sure.
But they become better because they've had an experience and they can ask questions. And, you can watch a bazillion YouTube videos, but it's not the same as asking somebody like, okay, wait a second, I didn't understand that, or what's the why behind it? Like, what's that going to do if I don't do it that way, and those types of things.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's something powerful about learning something new alongside other people.
Yeah.
I use the example, several months ago, I took a self-defense course that the local police department in my city was putting on for women. And there was about 20 of us, and it was 4 sessions over 2 weeks. And I knew nobody when I first kind of walked into the class. And by the end of it, I had formed relationships that I still maintain because, obviously what we were learning was sort of a kind of a scary situation type thing. But being alongside other people while learning something new, it was just a powerful experience because we were doing it together.
Yeah, and I was in Toastmasters for years, and that Toastmasters club, I ended up a lot of friends from it. It becomes a very kind of connected thing. The other interesting thing, I was talking about the renovation on my basement. One of my clients, there's somebody in his company that was doing a renovation almost the same time I was. And we would like either be behind or ahead of each other on certain projects.
Right.
Like he did a drop ceiling the week before I did a drop ceiling, right? And I did tiling before he did tiling. It gives you this commonality.
Sure.
It's like, so how'd your drop ceiling go?
Right.
Or what about the tile? And it gives you something more interesting to kind of bond and talk to people about.
Yeah, it's a shared experience. And, it makes running into people out, in the community or, at a restaurant or whatever, you've got that shared experience to talk about, and it's what connects you.
Well, and I think, interesting because one of the things you talked about in your bio is, not watching a lot of news, but being on social media. And we see social media as this place to connect. but it really isn't. Like we become more and more isolated
Sure.
because we perceive it as connection, you
Mhm.
know, like, oh, I'm hearing from this person every day, but you're never seeing the person. So this is a way to get people out. Like I like our community pool
Yeah.
because I meet my neighbors and I don't see them. I'm like, oh, we're at the pool and you're at the pool,
Yeah.
right? And it's a reason to kind of get people to because you know, there's lots of studies about the isolation, you know, that people, the older you get, the more isolated you are, you know, so.
Well, and it's easy to, you know, live next door to somebody for years and not know anything really other than their name and the car they drive. And
and if you're really bad, some neighborhoods we lived in, we were like the people who leave their garage door open all the time. You don't even know their name.
Right.
You just know their behavior.
You just
right?
know exactly their habits and their rituals and their routines. And I mean, it's been really cool, the response from the community for these workshops. I'm starting to have a lot of repeat workshoppers, I call them. And, you know, the city I live in had a birthday party. They do really big fireworks every year in August. And I was there with my husband and some friends, and I saw so many people that I would have never known who they were.
Yeah.
And it's because they attended the workshops. And I think my favorite thing is sort of being in the background at one of the workshops and seeing people connect for the first time, exchange emails or phone numbers or, you know, Instagram handles, whatever it is, to stay connected. And I think that's just, that's all I could really hope for, is that relationships would be formed, you know, out of this experience.
Yeah.
So.
And so is the plan to have like other master maker doers like you in other markets, or to try to do it virtually? Like what are you looking for?
So still kind of figuring out what that will look like. I have actually been approached a few times about people in different cities really liking, you know, what I've built and kind of the model, and asking to kind of replicate that. So similar to a franchise situation. We'll kind of see how that goes. You know, I'm over here still trying to schedule out September's social media, and, you know, I have these really awesome opportunities that are possibilities. So we'll kind of see. But my dream is to have a space, a brick and mortar, at some point where we can have all of the workshops there. But I love the idea of this being replicated in different places in the South or the country or whatever that looks like. Because I think regardless of where you live, community is the same.
Right.
People have the desire to connect with others on a deeper level other than social media or just, I know this person leaves their garage door open all the time, you know? And so I think that is kind of a long-term dream that I would love to see come to fruition. So
yeah. And so other sort of, so from a business perspective, I mean, what's the, as you kind of grow it and think about it, is this like, do you already know your cereal and like you'll do something else? Or do you feel like that, like this is something that could be a thing for a long time?
You know, when I sort of put my energy and focus into something, I am all in. And, you know, it's hard for me to kind of think of other things that might happen in the future. But right now, for the foreseeable next while, I will be doing Make and Do and building it out and continuing to improve it and grow it. I am not opposed to, you know, trying new things. You know, if there's one thing that this process has taught me, it's that the most growth comes when you step outside of your comfort zone and you say yes to being uncomfortable.
Right.
So, you know, whatever that looks like, whether it's, you know, going in a different direction with Make and Do or, you know, trying something new in the future, I'm open to it. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a great way to, well, we need to start building community. Like one of the reasons we're ignoring news is it's not doing that.
Right.
It's very bipolar and, you know, kind of polarizing, I guess is the word. And and the fact that we all crave this is kind of getting together for a reason. And even if you go to an event, you may all be there for the same reason, but you don't really interact with people the way that you could. So it's giving people something to work on together, and that's a great way to bond and get to know each other. So
yeah, absolutely.
I like it. It's a good movement.
Thanks.
It's a good movement.
Thank you.
So, well, we've been talking with Katie Mallett. She's the founder of Make and Do. You've been listening to Build Your Best Business. What are you going to do until next time to build your best business?